Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 2 of my Blender video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to cover the rest of the edit tools. I'm going to talk about layers. I'm also going to show you an easy way to merge vertices, as well as cover the array, wave, bevel, boolean, build, decimate, edge split, mask, and mirror modifiers. Like always, in the description underneath the video is a link to a cheat sheet that has everything I do here in text format, and I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so if you didn't see the previous part of my tutorial, you should probably watch that, otherwise you might be kind of confused. Alright, so we got our little cube here. This is the way everything always starts off, and I'm going to switch over into object mode, and I'm going to delete it. Very first thing I want to cover here is the screw tool. So what we're going to do first is we're going to switch into front orthographic view. And you can see right here, there that is. And you're going to see here in the bottom left-hand corner, everything that I do with my mouse or any commands that I type in. But I'm going to say them as I go along. So we are in front orthographic view, and I am also in object mode, as you can see right there. And if you can't see anything here, just view it full screen and everything will be good. Now, what I want to do here is cover the screw edit tool. So I'm going to first off create a circle. What it's going to allow me to do is wrap a pipe around a line, do really cool things with it. So I'm going to create a circle object first. So I'm just going to go Shift and A, and of course pick circle. Now, so I can better see it, I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to go R and X and 90, and then set that. And there you can see our circle. Now what I'm going to do is go over into edit mode. I'm going to hit tab to do that. And I have my circle selected. And what I want to do now is add a plane. And that is what my circle is going to rotate around. So just Shift A again. And I'm going to create a plane. Once again, let's rotate that so I can see it. So rotate X plus 90. And there it is. And we can set that. I can then go and click on G, and let's go and move it into position. So G and X, and then I'm going to place it by clicking with the left mouse button. I'm then going to click on A, and then B for box select, and I'm just going to grab these vertices. If you can't grab them, just make sure down here you have vertices selected as what you're going to grab, and we are going to delete those. So just go X and then vertices, of course. Then going to right click on the top vertice and stretch it up here just a little bit above my circle, and then come down here, click on this one, and once again just stretch it down here below that circle. I'm going to put my 3D cursor right in the middle of the plane that I have here, this edge that I created, and then the circle is going to wrap around it. And then I can just simply come in and go B and select that with the left mouse button, and then I can come over here to screw and click on screw, and there you can see it wrapped around it. And I can go and change the steps if I want to smooth that out. You can see it gets smoother. And then I could also change the number of turns that I would like. And then it would get bigger and bigger and bigger. So let's go, and you can see how cool that is. And as the tutorial continues, we'll go and I'll also show other different ways, other different pipes we can make, and all sorts of other different cool things. But that's pretty cool. Now what I want to do is take a look at the knife tool. And I just went and created another cube, and let's go and move this up above that plane. And the knife tool, we have to access it, we're going to go into edit mode, so tab, and then we can just click on K, or you can click on knife, or you can click on K. And I have this guy right here, and I'm just going to click on K. And then with my left mouse button, I'm just going to drag over it. And as you can see, it made a point there, made a point right there, made a point right there. And then I can hit enter. And you can see right there that it went and created both vertices as well as edges wherever I clicked. And I can do a whole bunch of these different guys. Let's come in here like this and just doesn't matter what you do, and so forth and so on. Enter once again, and there they are. And then you can come in and do crazy things. Let's go and right click on this and shift and right click on that and that and that and this. this, and then we can come in and do crazy things like use the extrude tool to extrude these out, or whatever you would like to do. And as the tutorial continues, we're going to do crazier little design things and show you how to actually use these in interesting and useful ways. But for now, I'm just going to give you a brief example of how to use all the different tools. And up next, we're going to look at the bisect tool. All right, and the bisect tool is basically going to cut an object in two, creating all the vertices as well as the edges that we would need. And the bisect tool is right over here. So let's just click on bisect, and there you go. We can just click anywhere we want to go, and you can see that it cuts it in half for us. And we can come over here and do the same thing. Oh, make sure you click on bisect and select all again and click on bisect. And let's say we want to come this way, and we can cut again. So just another way of creating vertices as well as edges. All right, so cool stuff. I wanted to show you something that's kind of useful based off of a question I received, and that is how we're going to be able to easily merge vertices. All right, so let's go and let's just create some planes. I'm in object mode right now, so Shift A, and let's create, Shift A and plane, and there's plane right there, and let's go and rotate this guy to some odd position, doesn't really matter where it is. And then I'm going to go and create another one, another Shift A, and here's another plane, and there it is. Now let's just grab it, bring it over here, and let's rotate it like that. All right, so this is totally abstract, but that's exactly what I'm looking for. So how exactly would I set it up so that I could take this vertice here and connect it to this vertice here, and that one there, and that one there, and they would line up perfectly? Actually, it is rather easy to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over into edit mode, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to click on this guy right here, and this is automatically merge vertices moved to the same location. So let's click on that. Then I'm going to come over here and click on snap during transform. Click on that. Make sure that it's highlighted anyway. And then we're going to click on this guy right here, type of element to snap to. And what we are doing is connecting vertices. So let's click on that. And then we can come up here and we can select a vertice. So let's just grab that guy right there. And with the right mouse button, start dragging it. And I'm going to hold down the control key. And as I get close, you can see it snapped. And then I'm going to left click to set it. And then once again, I can right click here and I'm coming over here, hold down the control key. It snaps into place, left click to set it. All right, so very quick and easy way to merge vertices and have them line up perfectly with each other. And now I'm going to give you another example of how we can use layers. All right, so this guy down here is our layer area, and currently we're in one layer, and you use layers a lot if you want to work on different objects separate from each other, which is extremely useful, and you can easily merge the information on the different layers. Let's just go and create one. Let's create a cube. There's a cube right there. Isn't it wonderful? And then I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to click in the layer next to it. So, the cube's gone. And now you can come in and let's do something different. Let's do a sphere. All right, so there is a sphere, and you can see that we can switch back and forth between the two of them. But you can also show both of the objects if you'd like by just coming in. Let me zoom in here. So I have this one already selected. I'm going to hold down the shift key and boom, you can see them both at the same time. And you're also going to be able to move objects to other layers. And how you would do that? Well, first off, I'm just going to click on this layer right here. So the sphere went away from it. And I'm then going to jump over into the sphere one. It is already selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on M, and it's going to say move to layer, and I'm going to say that I want it to go to the first layer. And now I can come down here, and you're going to see that both the cube and the sphere are both in the same layer. So really simple explanation of how we can use layers, and we'll be getting more into layers as the tutorial continues. But now what I want to do is show you a whole bunch of different cool things you can do with the modifier panel. Okay, so we're in object mode. Let's go and let's create a cube and just drop it in there. That looks fine. All right, so the modifiers are going to be over here underneath this wrench. So we're going to click, and you can see right there is an add modifier. And just to do something somewhat interesting, what I'm going to do is I want to subdivide this So I'm going to click on tab and I'm going to come in and subdivide it. So subdivide, subdivide, and that looks kind of okay. And then I'm going to come in and select my faces here. Let's deselect that. And let's go and just holding down the shift key and clicking with the right mouse button, X, and let's get rid of those faces. And I'm going to select all those, and X and faces. And remember, we can also come in here and we could use our circle tool if we would prefer to use our circle tool. And that's just C, and we come in and select those faces, and then escape, and then X and faces, and then I'll just right click again. All right, so just trying to do something semi-interesting here because I'm going to talk about the array modifier that's available to us. So and X and faces. All right, so there we got this sort of lattice type thing on our screen. Hold down the shift key so we can pan this around, and I can show you how the array tool works. Okay, so well, basically the modifiers, as you add them, I'm going to come in here. Well, I'm going to jump first off. I'm going to jump over into object mode. So I'm going to go tab, and here we are inside of object mode. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to add an array. So there that is, array tool, and you can see it automatically created one. Basically what the array tool is going to do for us, or the array modifier, is it's going to duplicate whatever selected objects that we have. And modifiers in general, you're going to be able to add multiple modifiers to each other, and you'll be able to sort of move them up and down based off of clicking these, because whatever modifier is near the top is what takes precedence over all the other ones. As we work more and more with these modifiers, you will better understand them. Now basically the relative offset right here is going to define where the objects are going to duplicate. Count, of course, is going to create more and more. So I created 5 of them right there, and there you can see that there are 5 different objects. And whenever we have this set for 1, that means that they are going to be exactly one object that we selected in distance from each other. So they're going to perfectly butt up against each other. Now, if I just move this just a tiny little bit, you're going to see that they pull apart from each other and there's a space. Well, sometimes you might want that, sometimes you might not want that. But if you want them to butt up perfectly with each other, you're going to keep that at 1. All right? The constant offset, if we select this guy right here, is going to define how they are spaced using Blender units, but I'm not going to use that. You can play around with that, and of course you're going to be able to change whatever a Blender unit is inside of Blender, depending upon what your project is and what your goals are. And what's neat is with this guy selected, and we're still in object mode, we can also come in here and we can add another one. So let's say add modifier and array, and there we went and created another one. But in this situation, what we're going to do is we're going to change this to 0, and instead come down here to the Y and change this to 1. And there you can see now we're building like a building with little tiny rooms and crazy things inside of it. So that is going to create an array of objects on both the X as well as the Y axis. And then we can come in and we can add another one. So let's go add modifier and array, and you can see it got bigger there. But in this situation, I'm going to go 0, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this to 1 and enter. And now you can see we're building apartment buildings. So pretty cool stuff, and very, very easy to come in here and create rather complicated types of objects. And you can see how cool it is and how they stack up on top of each other. Now we could come in and we can click on apply and apply and apply, and now they are going to all be merged together. And in fact, if you tried to select them individually, you just couldn't do that. So say if you select one, you select all of them. However, if you would like to break them up after you created that, you could jump into tab and you would click on all of these different objects, select them all, and once again you can break them apart by clicking on P and loose parts, which means the different objects themselves. And you can see if we jump back into object mode, we can select this and pull it apart. Okay, so pretty cool stuff we can do with the array tool, and as the tutorial continues, we will do even cooler things with the array tool. And now I want to show you how to use the wave modifier, which is pretty cool. Okay, once again, we're in object mode, and I'm going to go Shift A, and I'm going to create a cube. And this, the wave modifier is going to be like an animation. So let's go and let's scale this. And let's scale it on the X plane. And then we're going to create a wave on this. So once again, scale it, and let's do it on the Y plane. So we can have something that we can mess around with creating waves on. All right, now we'll go add modifier and wave. I just felt like doing this one. I'm going to get more into these guys later. I'm mainly going to focus on these modifiers for this tutorial, but I just wanted to do wave because it's kind of cool. All right, so whenever we have the motion, I'm going to show you an example of it. I just want to briefly go over this. Okay, so where we have motion, X, Y, and cyclic. If these are unchecked, waves will only move in whatever is checked, being it X or Y, or will create only one wave. And that's what we mean by cyclic. Offset is going to define how many frames before our wave motion actually begins. I'm going to leave that set for 0. Life is going to define the number of frames before the wave stops. So let's go and set that to, I don't know, like 50 or something. And damping is going to define the number of frames after the wave's lifetime that motion continues. We can change this to like 20. So it's just like, you know, the continuing wave as it slows itself down into basically doing nothing. Position, X and Y, is going to define the center of our wave, you know, on our object, where that wave is going to take off or where it's going to start. Fall off is how far our waves travel through the object. Normals over here are going to define if the object deforms and throbs in different directions. And of course, these would be the different directions that they would throb inside of. We're also going to be able to come in here, and I'm actually going to do this. We're going to define a vertex group that is going to define the effect on only one part of our object. So let's say we want the bottom to be flat and not be affected, and we only want to affect the top. Actually, let's do that. So I'm going to switch over into edit mode. So I'm going to go tab, and I'm going to come in here and select this guy. And I only want to work with the top vertices, so I'm going to create a vertex group for that. So if I want to create a vertex group for just the top, so we only see motion on the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into data, and that's this weird looking thing with the vertices and the edges. Select that. And I'm then going to rotate this guy up so I can see the bottom. And you're going to want to make sure that you have vertices selected down here. So you're going to be selecting the vertices. And I'm going to go B and box select, and let's grab those bottom vertices. And you can see that we grabbed them. I'm then going to go Control and I. And then I'm going to come over here to vertex groups and click on plus. And then I'm going to click on assign. I'm just going to leave the name be group like that. And now what I can do is jump back over, and for our object that we have here in object mode, we go tab and jump back into modifiers. And then for our vertex group, just select this and select group. And then we will only be working with the top part of this. We're also going to be able to define textures that we would want to use if we decide that we want to use textures. Narrowness is what we're going to be playing with here, and that's basically going to affect the crest of our wave. And what I want to do here to have the best effect is I'm going to switch over into edit mode, and I'm going to create some subsets. This is very important, so I'm going to go subdivide a whole bunch of times. That's probably pretty good. Do it some more. I could also define where the middle is. I can define the middle position here, or I can use an empty and define that with the start position. Haven't done that before, so let's do it that way. Well, actually, let's do it this way, and let's just see what it does. So I am going to define, you know what? Let's just have this lifetime be 0, and then the damping be 50, just to keep it nice and simple. Position's perfectly fine the way that it is. And then let's have our speed. Let's slow it down a little bit so that we can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to change it to 0.1. Leave my width at 1.5. That's fine. Height. Let's increase the height to 1.7 or something like that. And then the narrowness, let's take this up to, I don't know, 4.6 or something like that. And then we can come down here and click on play. And let's go and create an empty as well so that we can use that. Let's jump over into this mode right here. You can see there is the guy object mode. Now we can play it. We'll show it without the empty. See, there's the wave being created. And then we can also define an empty inside of here. So let's go Shift and A, mesh, and let's create an empty. And let's have that be a sphere. There it is. Let's grab it and let's drop it inside of here. Drag this around to make sure that we actually have it inside of our cube area. There it is. And then we can jump back into the wave modifier. Just select on it like this and start position, and we can do empty. And if we go, we're still in object mode. And now you can see that the wave is actually taking effect where we have the empty sphere. All right, so pretty cool stuff and neat ways to use waves, and we'll be using them more as the tutorial continues. But now I want to talk about bevel. Now the bevel modifier is going to do exactly what you would think it's going to do. It's going to create bevels. So let's go and let's create a shape, and just to keep it simple, I'm going to go mesh, and then let's create a cube. All right, so there's our cube. I'm right clicking it right there, and let's place it and then zoom in. And if I want to put some bevels on the edges of my cube, quite easy to do. Add modifier, and I'm just working my way down here, bouncing around a little bit, and you can see right there it created the bevels on the edges of our cube. And of course we're going to be able to define the width of our bevel, and you can see as I'm doing that, the width is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We can also define the number of segments, say, to smooth it out after we create our bevel. It's actually going to extrude out into the original shape if we increase profile right here. And then we're also going to be able to define different limits on how the shape is going to be beveled based off of angles and weights and vertex groups if we would decide to define those. And then we can also define different ways of defining the width based off of this. And you can see little descriptions in regards to that. So you can play around with that. So just wanted to talk about bevel. It just creates bevels. I mean, it's quite simple. So pretty simple stuff. Now I want to get something a little bit more complex. I'm going to talk about the Boolean modifier. All right, so we are in object mode, and I'm going to create two shapes, and let's go and create a cube, and let's drag it here because these guys are going to overlap, because that's what Boolean's going to do. It's going to have multiple objects affect each other based off of how they overlap with each other. Let's go like this, and Shift and A, and let's create a sphere. Whoops, get rid of that, and let's create a sphere. There we are, and there's our sphere. Okay, so these guys are going to interact with each other, both the cube as well as our sphere. So I'm going to drag the sphere into place, and let's have them actually roll into each other. So I'm using the left mouse button here, and let's bring it down. Okay, so there they are overlapping with each other. Okay, so let's say that I want to delete the sphere from the cube. I'm going to first off make sure in object mode. I'm going to select the object that I want to remain, and then not have the object that I do not want to remain selected. And I'm going to click on Add Modifier. I'm going to come down here and click on Boolean. And then I'm going to click on Difference. There it is. And then I'm going to come in and select Object, which is going to be the sphere in this situation. That's going to be the guy that is going to be deleted. And then to delete it, I can just click on Apply. And then after you do that, you come in here and select the sphere and X and delete. And you can see that the sphere ate a hole into the side of our cube. All right, so that's difference. Now what we can do is we can also combine multiple different objects. So let's go and let's just select all this and delete it all. So that's all gone. What I want to do now is I want to create a cube that has a spike coming out of the top of it. So let's create a cube, and then let's go and let's create a spike for it. So mesh and cone, and let's move this into position. Well, there's our cube, and here is our cone. So we'll have the cone coming up through the middle of our cube. Let's rotate around here, and let's scale it down a little bit. So scale, just so that it doesn't poke through our cube. And then we can go and G and move it right around the middle of our cube. And there we are. So there we got those two guys right there. Now you can actually select either object, it doesn't matter. I'm going to select the cube in this situation. Then what I'm going to do is come over here, and I'm going to go Boolean, and I'm going to go Union, and this is going to join them both together. And then I'm going to select the other object, which is going to be cone, of course. And then I can click on Apply, and they're going to be merged together. Then what I want to do is I'm going to go into edit mode, and I can come in here and I can click on the Z key to go into wireframe mode. After that, jump back over into object mode, come in here and select the wireframe underneath of this guy, go X and delete, and it's going, then click on Z, and you're going to see that the top of our spike is going to show, but the bottom has been deleted, and the two of those have been merged. Okay, so that's how we can merge them. And now what I want to do is set it up so that only the overlapping area is going to be showing through. So once again, let's just delete all of this, all gone, and let's go and create. Let's just do the same thing. We'll go cube, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to go and put the spike inside of there once again. So unselect that, and mesh, and cone, and we'll grab our cone. And what I want to do here is only have the overlapping part showing inside of it. So let's go and select it just like this in this area. And okay, that looks about good. And then we can grab it and drop it inside of there. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to show only the parts where the two of them intersect with each other. So here I'm going to select my cube, and then I'm going to come over here and add modifier and Boolean, and intersect is already there. And let's come in here and select cone, and you can see that it automatically went and got rid of that. And then we can click on apply, and then we can click on this guy up here and click on delete, and you can see only the parts where they intersected is being shown on the screen. Okay, so all kinds of interesting things we can do with the Boolean modifier. And now I'm going to quickly show you how the build modifier works. Let's just do it right on this guy. All right, so let's select it. This is going to be another animation. So I'm going to go add modifier, and basically it's just going to take an object and slowly put it together. So I'm going to go build, and then we can come down here, and basically you can define here at what frame it starts and how long it is going to be building the object. Come down here, click on plus, and you can see that it is going to slowly build that shape for us and then put the top on it. So it's just a really simple animation. You could also do randomize. You could do really cool things like the lattice thing that I showed you earlier where we built those buildings. We could select that whole entire thing and then have the animation build everything up, or whatever we'd like. Make sure you come back to the beginning frame, and with randomize selected, you can see that it's just randomly building everything. All right, so it's just a very, very quick and simple animation. And now I want to take a look at Decimate. Let's come in here and let's create something a little bit complicated. Let's create a sphere. All right, and then we're going to come over and we're going to go decimate. Now basically the decimate modifier is going to reduce the face count on an object, which is going to do things for us such as increase our overall performance. Now the ratio over here is going to define the ratio of faces to keep. So for example, if this is set for 0.5, that would mean that half the faces have been removed, or that half the faces remain, however you prefer to look at it, if you're a cup half full or half empty type of person. And you can see that I am going to limit that, and it's overall keeping the general shape of it not looking that bad, but we have a lot less faces, which is going to mean a lot less calculations. You're going to be able to also define if you want to triangulate, because sometimes that's going to look better. In this situation, it definitely does. Unsubdivide is going to get rid of vertices, and it's pretty much like the opposite of subdivide. So you can see here we have 512 faces. Let's change this to 1, and you can see it's down to 240. So see, a lot less faces, and at the same time we're still keeping our general shape that we have here that we're looking for. Planar down here is going to reduce details for objects that are already mainly flat, so there's no reason for all of that extra work to be done. And with planar, under the angle limit, you're going to be able to remove faces with angles that are lower than whatever you define the degree to be here. And you're also going to be able to check on all boundaries, which is going to remove faces along boundaries of the faces. And then you have all of these different options under delimit. And basically, if you have normal selected, this is going to define that you don't want to dissolve edges where faces are reversed. Material means that you don't want to dissolve where different materials are assigned, because if a different material is defined, then chances are you want it to show. And then you also have seams, which means you don't want to dissolve edges where you have seams. And sharp is going to say that we don't want to dissolve along sharp edges for logical reasons. And if UVs is selected, that means we don't want to dissolve if we would have 2D images mapped onto our object, which we're going to get into in later parts of the tutorial. Okay, so there is decimate, and now I want to talk about edge split. Okay, so edge split is basically going to take a smoothed object and at the same time define and show the edges, which is going to be important with our objects. it's probably better to just show you an example. And it's a little bit confusing because we have another tool that does basically the same thing without the need to use a modifier, but what have you. So let's just come in here and go like this and mesh, and let's create a cone inside of here, and then let's go and create an edge for it. So I'm going to go into edit mode. There we are. And let's go and select the face for this guy down here. So where that is. And then let's do like an extrusion on it. So there we are. We just created ourselves a little edge. Jump back into object mode and let's move this up here. And we'll go and click on smooth. You can see it's smooth and it's sort of lost the edge. What we're going to be able to do is go add modifier and edge split. And you can see here, as I am dragging the split angle, it is going to bring into focus that edge while keeping everything else smooth. Okay, well, it's just useful to know that you can do this with another tool. We're going to go into data once again. So let's click on data up here, and there that is. We're also going to be able to click on auto smooth and then change the angle on this to get exactly the same result. Okay, so that's what it's doing. It's taking an object that is smoothed out and it's defining that edge inside of there. Okay, just wanted to quickly cover that because it is there. And now I want to talk about mask. Now basically, mask is going to allow vertices of an object to be hidden using a vertex group. So let's go and just create a sphere here just to keep it simple. And I'm going to click on the data tab over here once again, this guy, that upside down triangle shape that we have there. I'm then going to go into edit mode and A to deselect that. And let's come in and we'll select some of the vertices on here, and you can see that I can hide them or bring them back or do whatever I'd like depending upon the situation. So we'll just select that. I'm then going to go over into the data table, vertex group and plus to create a new vertex group, and we'll just leave it named group. That's perfectly fine, and we will name it, or we'll click on assign to create it. Now I can jump back over into object mode, and I have this selected, of course. I'm going to go into our modifiers area, add modifiers and mask, and there's all kinds of cool things you can do with mask, but it's better shown through example, but I just wanted to cover this. Vertex group, and you can see that it's showing just the part that where the vertex group lies. However, you're also going to be able to click on the inverse, and it's going to show you everything except the vertex group. Okay, so very, very simple example of how we can use mask. And then for our final example, I want to talk about the mirror modifier. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a cube, and there's our cube. It's wonderful and fantastic. Basically, the mirror modifier is going to mirror the movements of different parts of our object. So I created our cube here. Then what I want to do is I want to jump back over into edit mode, and I want to select some vertices. I then want to go Control R, and what I want to do is mirror one side to the other. So I'm going to go Control R, and I'm going to divide this down the middle. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for, and I can click with the left mouse button, and there it is set. So now I have everything completely split. Now what I want to do is delete vertices on one side of our object. All right, so A to deselect, and I'm going to go like this. Hold down Shift key and right click on all these different vertices. Okay, that's what I wanted to do the first time. And X and vertices, and there you can see is half of our box. Now I'm going to jump back over into object mode. That's already selected, and go add modifier. I can then go mirror. I can then jump back over into edit mode. And with X and Y on the axis both selected, you can see that it went and created the other side of our cube. And now what you're going to be able to see, if we go into edit mode, is, and make sure you have vertices selected down here. If I select one of these vertices and move it out, you're going to see that they mirror each other, that they are actually creating that. I could shut off the X if I just want the right side to be shown, and you can see the merge right there. If you have any issues in which you have creases at any of the merge points, which you would have right here, then you would come over here. What I like to do is set this to 0.01. That normally has a tendency to get rid of any creases. And basically what merge does is merge one object into another. Clipping, if it is clicked on, is going to prevent objects from moving through each other, meaning the mirrored object and the other regular object that is not mirrored. Vertex group is going to be checked if you want to handle mirroring for vertex groups. And the mirror object can be defined if you want to merge around an object. Like, for example, let's unselect this, and let's come in and let's create another object. So shift, make sure I'm in object mode, so tab. So for example, I created a sphere that is outside of our space right here. What I can do is actually have it have an effect on the mirrored objects. So let's select that and click on mirror objects and sphere. And then as I move our sphere, it's going to directly affect our mirrored object. All right. So there is a rundown of a whole bunch of different tools that are available to you inside of Blender. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.